Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska, and this is the news. The Polish-American alliance is of great importance for the security of our country. The Republican Party convention is behind us, where it has already been officially announced that Donald Trump will run for president. Representatives of Polish President Andrzej Duda, Chief of Cabinet Marcin Mastalerek, and Minister in the Chancellor Wojciech Kolarski met with Trump himself, his vice president candidate J.D. Vance, and key Republican activists. The Polish president has a good relationship with both the Republican candidate and the incumbent president, Democratic candidate Joe Biden. However, it should be remembered that the last decade has seen the blossoming of Polish-American cooperation when the United States was governed by Donald Trump.
Please welcome the next president of the United States.
The Republican Party convention was one big show, but before it began, Donald Trump, along with his closest associates, met with representatives of the Polish president. It was an opportunity to talk with many very influential people from the Republican Party. On the other hand, I'm very happy that on such an important day for President Trump, he found some time to meet with representatives of President Andrzej Duda, together with vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance. Of course, we do not know the exact details of the talks, but what we are getting at is the deep respect Republicans have for Poland and President Andrzej Duda. Our country is among the top NATO countries when it comes to arms spending, and this is particularly important to the Americans. In all the talks we are having now, Poland is considered a very important country. We are an important ally. We are an appreciated ally. So what is happening here in the context of transatlantic relations, in which Poland finds such an important place, is at the same time a great praise for the consistent policy of President Andrzej Duda from the very beginning. This is another meeting of this kind. On April 18th, Donald Trump met with President Andrzej Duda himself. Very significantly, the Polish president, despite his friendly relations with the Republican camp, is not closing himself off to cooperation with President Biden, because no matter who is in the White House, America will remain a key partner for Poland. Coming from the right-wing camp, the Polish president was the only Polish politician holding an important position in recent times who showed that he was able to put the interests of Poland above his political team and above his political sympathies. A completely opposite policy is pursued by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who has repeatedly attacked Trump, as well as the entire Republican Party. From the point of view of Poland's security, Europe's security, the future of NATO, a possible victory by President Trump would probably work towards the detriment of these matters. When Donald Trump first ran for president of the United States, leftist propaganda tried to pin a pro-Russian face on him. All doubts were dispelled by his presidency, which turned out to be pro-Polish. It was during his time that America decisively strengthened its troops on the Vistula River. The symbol of Trump's policy was his visit to Poland in 2017.
Poland is the geographic heart of Europe, but more importantly, in the Polish people, we see the soul of Europe.
The American political scene is more similar to our Polish one than we think. A possible victory of Donald Trump for the American as well as the Polish elite would be a disaster. Today, it is the conservatives who are the revolutionaries, and the left liberal chambers are the incumbent aristocracy, who will either step up as they did in England and leave and let the people govern themselves, or end up like the French aristocracy during the revolution. The electoral polls are very close. The victory will perhaps be decided by individual votes, which is why it will be so important to win the support of Poles in the states who can tip the balance. Paweł Włoch, TV Republika. She is the face of the Green Deal that drains the pockets of Europeans. She is the face of the Migration Pact that weakens the security of the continent. And finally, she is one of the main promoters of the model of the European Union as a superstate. German Ursula von der Leyen will head the European Commission for the next 5 years. You have to change a lot to keep things the same, said Prince Fabrizio Salina, the protagonist of the novel The Leopard. The same can be said about the elections in the European Parliament. The re-election of Ms. Ursula von der Leyen is equivalent to what has been going on in the European Union for some time now, which is more of the same, more of the Green Deal, more reforms, moving towards a single European state. The head of the European Commission should be an impartial person and head the commissioners who represent each nation. However, most of the decisions that the current head of the Commission has made over the past 5 years have served the interests and economy of Germany. Ursula von der Leyen, in the name of this ideological madness and these political interests of political groups like the CDU and SPD, is leading the European Union de facto towards disaster, towards the abyss. So I am not objectively looking to point to any success of this previous term. There have been more voices critical of von der Leyen. For what you are doing, you should go to jail, not to the European Commission. Your presence as head of the European Commission is a further downfall of the European Union. Voters in the last European Parliament elections showed that they want to move away from such drastic left liberal solutions.
Madam President, you are forcing European citizens with the Green Deal when Europe is responsible for 7% of pollution of the globe, and you want to save Europe with our pockets. This is madness.
Despite the close relationship that Ursula von der Leyen has with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
Bon courage, my friend. And Donald, remember, when we see each other again, we'll see you, as you've said, as a prime minister.
No one from Poland's ruling coalition has taken a prominent position. In the European Parliament, the only person who has embraced anything is Ewa Kopacz. The rest is with no experience, no language skills, no competence. Even belonging to this ruling group, they are not able to mean anything. Ewa Kopacz was given the honor of being one of the 14 co-chairs of the European Parliament. However, a more important position was taken by MEP Kosma Złotowski, who was elected as one of the 5 questors of the parliament. Quite unexpected, since he belongs to the right-wing faction. The right wing in the European Parliament is growing stronger from election to election, and as a result, this is pragmatism. Indeed, in preparing for future cooperation, I think such precedents will be set. The new composition of the European Parliament, as well as the new leadership of the European Commission, is unlikely to herald a breakthrough in EU policy, which is directed at subjugating member states against their national interests. However, the rise in support for right-wing groups shows that a large part of the population is not reconciled to the imposition of a liberal left ideology on the rest of the community. Marcin Bakalarski, TV Republika. A scandalous verdict by the Białystok Administrative Court against national security. The border guard in Mielnik lost 2 cases with illegal migrants, complaining about the procedure for being returned to Belarus. As a result, the illegal arrivals were awarded reimbursement of court costs. For both of them, nearly 700 zloty each. All this after an Afghan and an Ethiopian unlawfully jumped over the barrier on the Polish-Belarusian border and broke their foot and leg. The verdict is shocking because the men did not apply for asylum, nor did they normally cross the border. Instead, they have illegally jumped over the border barrier and were aware of the fact that they were breaking the law. The court wrote in its justification that the 2 migrants wanted to apply for asylum after crossing the Polish border, but were ignored by the services. The border guards, on the other hand, said they did not do so because they learned that filing such an application in Poland would prevent them from going into Germany. I am unable to understand such court rulings, which are simply contrary to common sense, and it also seems to me that this is not necessarily legal. I, for one, believe that these individuals should bear criminal responsibility for illegally crossing the Polish border. The foreigners' attorneys were activists affiliated with the Granica group, and it was at their instigation that the migrants were to file the complaint. They make these illegal migrants want to get across the Polish-Belarusian border because they know very well that later they can run into these activists who will help them get further into Germany or other European countries illegally. Activists from the Granica group openly admit to helping foreigners cross the Polish border illegally. They also provide legal assistance and ultimately want to bring about a change in migration law in Poland. Since the beginning of June, we have recorded at least 66 deportations of people who gave us proxies and in our presence expressed their willingness to apply for international protection. The case may lead to a change in the existing jurisprudence on collective expulsions. Illegal migrants will be even more encouraged to try to get to Poland because even if it doesn't work out and they are turned back to Belarus because they don't want to apply for asylum, they will still be able to seek compensation. In April, Minister Adam Bodnar appointed a special team of prosecutors to investigate whether the defenders of our border have committed any acts for which they could be charged since the beginning of the hybrid war in 2021. This is simply a pathological situation for the reason that such a situation is created, and those who are appointed to do this get paid for this, are trained to do this, to protect the Polish border, and through such sentences, according to the public perception, they come out as those who are the oppressors, while those who are exploited by the Lukashenko regime are shown as the victims. A few days ago, a group of about 20 people attacked soldiers on night duty. Defenders of our border were spat on and insulted. It should be emphasized that these are organizations that have a lot of support. It would have to be examined whether they also have the support of, for example, Russian or Belarusian services. They have a lot of support and can count on a lot of money. And they also have the support of lawyers who toil to use legal tricks in such difficult situations. Despite all the adversity, the Polish border guard is achieving further successes. It recently detained a Syrian man, the founder of an organized crime group making money from the smuggling of migrants. The gang was transferring money to terrorist organizations involving at least $30 million. Delays at airports, in rail traffic, and difficulties in online banking. A global Microsoft outage affected millions around the world, all because of a faulty antivirus update. The situation shows how the current world depends on ICT systems. Their failure can hinder the functioning of almost every sphere of our lives. This gives food for thought, but there are also lessons to be learned for the future.
That screen is not normal.
Until today, similar stories could only be found on the pages of science fiction books or in Hollywood thrillers. Computer screens around the world using Microsoft software displayed the so-called blue screen of death. Tools we use every day in countless situations suddenly stopped working.
The airline have no idea what's happening. Because it is such an issue that they don't have a grasp on yet, at least here at the Minneapolis airport. And so I think that's one of the more concerning and confusing things is when they don't have answers, we're just sitting here kind of waiting for somebody to tell us.
As a result, thousands of people were stranded at airports. Businesses could not function normally, and ordinary users could not use their computers. More than 1,400 flights around the world were canceled. Trains did not run in the US and the UK. The problem affected all institutions, stores, hospitals, media, or banks. The British station Sky News disappeared from the air. The broadcast resumed, but against a backdrop of blue screens. Poland came through the crisis relatively well, but the effects of the global breakdown could also be felt in Poland. Passengers in Poland had trouble checking in online. The container terminal in Gdańsk also struggled with problems. Customers of several banks found it difficult to access their accounts, make cashless payments, or call the hotline. This outage directly affected the lives of many people. For example, Amsterdam Schiphol Airport stopped functioning practically 100%. You could see that at many airports in Hong Kong and India, tickets were being issued manually, as the systems responsible for this simply did not work. Fortunately, the original fears of a massive cyber attack were not confirmed. It turned out that a faulty update to CrowdStrike, an antivirus program used by Microsoft, was responsible for the outage.
So in terms of cybersecurity and security, they are probably one of the biggest players in the world. Now, they might not be well known by people, but almost any time you read an article about the latest sophisticated cybersecurity attack, CrowdStrike are involved somewhere, whether that's remediation or just providing expert comment. They are very big. And while Microsoft provide the operating system, CrowdStrike provide a tool which helps to secure it just that bit more, which is what a lot of companies want.
The problem can be fixed on its own, but it may take several days to fix the global cause of the glitch. Repair work has already been implemented. It is difficult to assess what the final impact of the failure will be on the economy. Thousands of companies store all sorts of data in Microsoft's cloud. The whole situation is a wake-up call about the danger of moving almost all of our lives into the digital realm, especially when this one is being monopolized by a few tech giants. This is a warning signal to slow down the development of AI, because if, in an ill-considered way, companies begin to optimize their operations to reduce costs, speed up operations by introducing agents and AI assistants here and there, the consequences could be much more serious than now. The outage demonstrated the fragility of the global digital system. It also underscores how catastrophic a potential attack on key cyber elements could be. That's all for the news tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.